All right, sounds good. So again, today will be a bit of a heavy class. We're gonna cover some important concepts today because yeah, just some important concepts. So this class might be a bit more content packed than some of the other ones, but I'll just get started right now. All right, so hopefully you guys can see my screen. And today we're gonna be first going over conditions in Python, and then we're gonna talk about functions. All right, so first, what is a condition? So just in like real life, we often like make decisions based on conditions. Like if it's raining, we take an umbrella, otherwise we don't. Like our entire life is basically just based on decisions. And also in programming, we also have decision making structures. So like if this condition is true, we're gonna do this. Otherwise, we're not gonna do this. It's just like making a choice basically. And in Python, we got special keywords like if, elif, and else statements that basically control what we do. So for example, let's say we have the value a, right here, a is 10. So if a is greater than 10, which is not because a is equal to 10, right? So if a was greater than 10, we would print this, and otherwise we'd print this, and then the program would end. So it's really that simple. Now first we're going to talk about the if statement. Now the if statement basically evaluates if a condition is true. So this is like, it's kind of like similar to English. Like if this condition is true, you have like a block of code here, and that's going to run if this condition is true. But if it's not true, and you don't have any other code, then nothing's going to happen. So let me just show an example right now. You guys can see like VS Code, right? Um, hold on. Yeah, are you guys able to see like VS Code, or are you guys still on the slides? Because I don't know if you guys can like see the VS Code stuff. Um, oh, let me retry. All right, hopefully this is better. Yeah. So now we're gonna kind of talk about what I was this condition thing from earlier. So as an example, if so I set age to 18, right? And I put the condition if age is greater than or equal to 18, then print you an adult. So I think this let's just talk about kind of like what's happening. So I set age equal to 18, right? Like this is pretty basic stuff. Like we've learned about variables before. We've learned about like setting something equal to another thing, right? And now we have to do the if condition from earlier. Remember, we kind of have this if statement. That's something in Python that you can use. So what we're going to do is if age is greater than or equal to 18. Now um yeah, this thing right here, this is a mathematical operator. Now you guys might not be familiar with what these are, but I'll just give like a quick overview. So if you want to do greater than or equal to, greater than or equal to. So this is the operator you want to use to check if something is greater than or equal to. This is the operator you want to use if it's just greater than. And if you have less than or equal to, and then you just have less than, and then you have equal to exactly. So those are kind of like the mathematical operators you can use when comparing stuff. So in this example, I have if age is greater than or equal to 18. And this is going to be true because 18 is equal to 18. So I can just like put something under here that I want to happen because this condition is true. Now make sure you have this indentation. You see how like I can't just do this, right? Like I can't just like if this condition is true. I have to make sure that this is like underneath it here to know that this thing is contained in this thing. So I have to make this indentation here. And only then will it work. So if I run this program, it's going to output hello because this condition is true, basically. Yeah, okay, output hello because this condition was true. Now, if it's not true, if my age was 5, then 5 is not greater than or equal to 18, so nothing's going to happen, basically. Yeah, nothing happened. So that's just kind of how if statements work. If something is true, this is going to happen. If it's not true, then nothing's going to happen because I don't have any other code. And as I said, indentation is very important. Like we've learned about in for loops. So for I in range 1 to 5, you have to put this indentation here. This is the same with if statements and basically everything in Python. And the else statement. So the else statement has to be used in conjunction with the if statement. The else statement means that if the condition isn't true, like what we have here, like this condition isn't true, and then we have to say else. That means if this condition isn't true, we just want to do something else, right? Because normally, if we didn't have this, nothing would happen. But if we have else, we can actually make something happen if this condition isn't true and it's not. So we're going to print hi. So because this condition isn't true, it's going to use this else statement and it's going to print hi. Now, if this condition is true, it's going to still print hello. It's not going to go to else because this condition was already true. So it's just going to skip this. So is there any questions on this, or does everyone sort of understand the concept, basically? All right, then I'm assuming no questions. So we're going to go to this practice problem. And I'll give you guys around 5 minutes to do this problem, and then we can continue on. So I'll just be giving you guys 5 minutes to do that problem. All right, so hopefully you guys are able to give this problem a try. If you got it, then great. Otherwise, we're just gonna go over the answer basically. So the question was write a program to ask for the user's age. If the age is less than 18, you should output you are not an adult yet. And also you don't have to output anything. So basically what we gotta do is just age equals just ask the user for the input. Um yeah, basically so this is age. So we've learned about how using if you wanna ask for input, you do like the input thing. But if we also wanna convert it into an integer, we have to put int, which stands for integer, and then we have to surround the whole input with that. So usually we just do this, but if we want it to be a number, like this is for a string. This is when we want to take in like a string. But if we want to convert that to a number, we have to surround it with this to make that an integer. All right. And then we have the if statement. So if age is less than 18, like with this symbol, less than, we're just going to print you are not an adult yet. So you didn't even really need an else statement. So like if age is less than 18, like you could have just left that here. Like if you have an else statement, you don't really have to do anything. So it's best just not to put this here because if you don't want to output anything, you just don't need an else statement. And then we also have the elif statement, which stands for else if. So basically what happens is you can check multiple conditions. So if one condition evaluates to true, um, then the condition will be executed. Like, so if condition one is true, then the code under condition one will execute, and the rest are skipped. So it won't even look at the other ones. But we have the else if we can basically specify many conditions with the else if statement. So if condition one isn't true, then we're going to check condition two. So that's just an additional statement we can check, and we have to use else if. And then, of course, if nothing is true, if nothing above is true, we have the else, which kind of like is a catch-all statement. So like, if nothing else is true, we always have this to execute. And in general, the if statement should be first, and the else statement should be last, right? Because the else statement is check. Yes, there's a hand. Go ahead.
I had an error in when I was trying to do the problem. I had an error, and I don't know what my mistake is.
Your mistake. Which this problem?
Yes.
Um, so did you input this exactly?
Yes.
Is there a chance you could tell me like what the error says? Like, what does it say?
I don't know, but it was like sending me an error that like your if condition is like wrong, I think.
Um, you sure you typed this exactly? So basically, you gotta type a number and then. Did you make sure to type a number
Yes.
like 5 and you got an error?
I didn't put 5, I put 18.
18. Yeah, if you put 18, then nothing should happen.
Oh, but it sent me an error, and there was like if condition written on it.
And this was
I got the mistake. I put the bracket on the if condition.
oh, okay, I see. So it works now.
Yes.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah. All right. So yeah, this is basically what happens. And again, I was saying about the else if statement. So we got if the condition is true, nothing else is going to execute, but you can also specify many other conditions. So you can have as many elif statements as you want, right? So let's go an example. So again, we kind of have the same example as earlier, right? You have the if age is less than 18, print you're not an adult yet. But then we also specified some other conditions here as well. So let me just kind of like just kind of show you guys what the process kind of is happening here. And then okay, so feel free to kind of maybe copy this if you want to, but basically what happens is this elif statement is an additional condition that you can check. However, this condition only runs if this condition isn't true, because this elif stands for else if. Let me make my screen bigger. Okay. Yeah. So this condition only runs if this condition isn't true. So it kind of goes up, down. So if you input something, it's going to check this. If this isn't true, it's going to check this. And then if it isn't true, it's finally going to check this. However, if this is already true, then it's not going to bother checking the other ones, right? So let's say I input 5. Right? 5 is less than 18. So this is true. And 5 is also less than 19. So this is true. However, it's not going to print this because something else was already true. So it's just going to skip everything else. Right? So if I put 5, then both these conditions are true, yes. But since this is already true, nothing else is going to happen. Yeah. So if we do something else like, yeah, hold on. So let's say we input 20, right? 20 is not less than 18, so this is not true. 20 is not less than 19, so this is not true either. Therefore, we have this else statement. So if none of these are true, then at least this is going to print. So it's going to print test 2. So that's just going to happen. So basically, if you input something, it's just going to go top down. It's going to check each of these. So we have the if statement, and then we have the else if statement, which is elif for short. And then the last thing we have the else statement, which basically checks if nothing else was true above, then we can at least check here. Then we at least print this. Does that make sense to you guys? I'm assuming it does since there are no questions. And so basically just to restate, if the user inputs 10, then this is going to be true. 10 is less than 18. It's also less than 19, but none of this is going to actually output because something was already true. So it's just going to skip these two. So let's say, what if you wanted to output test 1 as well? So what if when you input 20, you wanted this to output because it's true, and this is also true, so you also wanted this to output? Because right now, what happens is that this gets printed, but this part gets skipped, even though it's true. So what if we don't want to skip it? So instead of changing else if, we can just change it to an if, right? Because elif stands for else if. So that means that basically means that if none of the above is true, then we're going to check this. However, just using the if statement, we're going to check it even if stuff above is true. So even if this is true, then we can also still check this with if. If we use else elif, then if this is true, then nothing else isn't checked. However, if we use if, it's going to check both. So if we input 10, now both of them are going to be printed, this and this. So yeah, you can kind of like switch it however you like. You can use elif if you just want the first to be printed. You can use if you also want both of these to be printed. And yeah, hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So basically, I'll introduce a practice problem. So write a program asking the user for their favorite color. So if they input blue, I'll put that's a nice color. If they input red, I'll put nice choice. And if they input anything else, I'll put that's cool. So yeah, that's kind of just what I want you guys to do right now. I'll give you maybe around 5 minutes to do this. And yeah. All right, so hopefully you guys have had enough time to try this problem out. If you were to solve it, good job. But yeah, I'll go over the answers now. So basically what we need to do was, so this, we can just delete all this, I guess. So let's create a variable called color. And then, yeah, we just want to input something, right? With simple input. And then we have if they input blue, I'll put that's a nice color. So let's say if color, yeah, okay, that's fine, yeah. Equals, so we have to use the double equal sign. You can't use a single equal sign. The single equal sign is for assigning something. The double equal sign is for checking if something is equal to something else. So if color is equal to blue, so if this is true, when output, that is a nice color. So we can just copy and paste this. Print this. Then we can use elif. You could use if or elif. It doesn't really matter in this case, but I'll just use elif. So elif color is equal to red. I'll print nice choice. Okay, and then if they import any other color, I'll put that's cool. So any other color, we can just use else statement for that. So if else, so if it's not blue or red, we have this else. So if it's any other color, we can print that's cool. Okay, so this is basically the entire code. And yeah, we can just test it out. So let me say my favorite color is blue. That is a nice color. So this statement was true. So I just skipped everything else. And if I say red, it'll say nice choice. Red. Nice choice. And again, this is the else statement. So if none of these are true, so let's say I input green, this isn't true, and this isn't true either. So it's just going to say that's cool because none of these were true. So it's just going to output else. So yeah. So if I do green, it'll say that's cool. If I just basically do anything but yellow or blue, I get that's cool. Orange. Yeah, you kind of get the point. So that's basically the rundown of if, elif, and else. That's basically how conditionals work in Python. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about this? I'm assuming there's not any questions, so let's move on to the second part of today's lesson. So what we just covered was conditionals, and now we're going to move on to functions, which is a bit more of a complicated subject matter, but it should be fine. So, okay, this is applicable in real life. So let's say you're making a sandwich. You might need to repeat the steps of spreading butter or adding ingredients. Instead of writing out each step each time, we can think of these as a function that can be reused. So if we do something like walking, like we usually walk, like walking is very common. We don't have to do like write out each step each time. What if we just write it as a function and then we can reuse that function? So in programming, it allows you to encapsulate a task. So if you have, like, let's say you want to do this, like, let's say you want to print highs many times, like this. Like basically you just want to print high many times. Now you could just copy and paste this many times, but it's a bit annoying to like write the same thing so many times. we should just define a function so that we can, whenever we want to print hi, we just call a function. And then that this just happens. You don't have to write the same code many times. Yeah, because yeah, if like your program is big enough, then it becomes really hard to keep track of like where everything is. It's easier to just make a function, so you can just call that function again and again if needed. So like, there's many steps of there's 4 steps of a function. First, you have to define the function. So you obviously need to create the function itself. You need to create code so the function actually exists. You need to call the function. So you need to let the code know when you want to use the function. Because when you create the function, it's just there. Like it's just there. It's not going to do anything unless you want it to do something. You have to call the function. So calling the function basically means letting the program know that you want to use the function. And then you have to pass in arguments, which basically means you have to like give information to the function so the function knows what you want it to do. And then the 4th thing is sort of optional. You can also return something from the function. So you can give something to the function, and the function can also give you something back. That's kind of how a function works. So it's like a two-way street. You give something to the function, it can give you something back if you want it to, but it doesn't always have to give you something back. So this is the 4th step is optional. So first off, we need to define a function. Like we need to create a function. And this is done using the define keyword. Okay? So right now we just have this. Let's just remove this. Let's say we want to define a function. Define, well, in Python, it's that you have to use def. That's short for define. And then the function name. So let's say we want a function that can add numbers. That's what we want the function to do. So the name of the function will be add numbers. Okay? And so yeah, this is kind of just a function right now. It's not complete. It's not really doing anything right now. We just gave it a name, but it's not doing anything right now. It's kind of just there. But remember how I said we can also give information to the function? Well, how we do that is by, in these brackets right here, we want to put something. We're going to put A and B. So this is what we're giving to the function. We're giving the function A and we're giving the function B. So now the function can use these two things. So if we want to add numbers, it's obviously A plus B, right? That's just what the function does. So A plus B. Now, right now, it's just adding the numbers. It's not really that doing anything right now. But since we want the function to give us A plus B, we have to return A plus B. So yeah. So let's just not use return right now. Let's just forget about this right now. And let's just say, what if we didn't want the function to return something? What if we just want to say greetings? A function that you always need to put the brackets. Even if you don't want to put anything in here, even if you don't want to give the function anything, you still need to put these brackets. And what do we want the function to do? Let's just say, what if we want the function just print hi? Okay. So what this we just define the function. The name is greetings, and what it just does is it prints hi. That's all the function does. So now we can call the function that we want to make use of the function. And how we do that is like let's say you have a friend. Well, how will your friend know that you're calling them? Well, you just say your friend's name. So just like in the same way, you have to say the function's name to know that you need the function right now. So basically what's over here, you're just going to copy and you're just going to paste it here. So you know that, the code knows that you need the function right now. So once you call the function, whatever is under here is going to execute. So right now I just have hi. So if I call the function, it's going to print hi. That's all it is. So that's just kind of how what's going on now. So you just call the function. The function was defined as something that just prints hi. So hi was just print. That's all it is. And again, the arguments as well. So this is kind of simple right now. So let's say this is greetings 1. So this is going to be our first version of greeting. So it's just simple. It just says hi. That's all it is. How about let's define another function. Define greetings 2. Now let's give the function some information. Let's give the function first name, last name. Now these can really be called anything, but realistically they should be called something that actually describes what you're trying to give it. Okay, so basically what I defined this function to do was that if you give the function information, it's going to print hi, it's going to print first name, last name, and then exclamation mark. So this is just printing something right now. And if we want to call the function again, we can't just do this. Like, this is not going to work because the function needs some information. It needs some information that it can use. So first name, what's my first name? I'll just say my first name is Patrick. So the function needs first name, so you have to give it first name. And my first name is Patrick, so I'll just put this in here. So this corresponds to first name. My last name is Chen. Right? So Patrick, so the first name I gave it was Patrick, and then the last name I gave it was Chen. So now if I call this function, it'll say hi, and then it'll say Patrick Chen, the exclamation mark at the end. So hi Patrick Chen. That's basically the rundown. So if you want to give the function information, you have to put some things in the brackets, and then you want to give the information that's required. And again, you can have as many arguments as you want. So you can have first name, last name. You can also add middle name in here if you want. But if you also want to include middle name, you also have to let the function know what your middle name is. So I'll say my middle name is just X. Yeah. So you have to separate them by commas so the first thing corresponds to first name, the second thing corresponds to middle name, the last thing corresponds to last name. So these have to match up. So whatever is in the first square or in the first section has to also be in the first section here. And the same, yeah, the order matters basically. So now it's going to print hi Patrick X Chen, and it's going to print that. Yeah. So that's the basic rundown of just like a normal function where you don't return anything, you just make the function do something. Does that make sense to you guys, or are there any questions? Okay, I'm assuming no questions, so we can move on to return statements. Okay, so far we've been focusing on things that they just print something, they don't give you anything really. I mean, it prints something, but they don't actually give you a value. They don't give you something you can use. So what the return statement does is that it'll give you something back. So when you call the function, it will give you something back. I'll show you what I mean. Let's use the function add. We'll add number 1 and number 2. Right? So obviously what we want is we want to add the numbers. So we do number 1 plus number 2. And let's return it so we can actually get the value back. So if we call 1 and 2, right? We're passing in 1 as number 1. We're passing in 2 as number 2. and it's returning 1 plus 2. It's returning 3. If it's returning something, then we also need something to accept that value. Like if something is if the function is returning something, we need to get that return value. We need to know what the function gave us. So therefore, we can assign a variable to this. Let's say result. So now whatever is returned here, it will be stored inside this variable called result. So 1 plus 2 is going to return 3. It's going to return 3 to the variable here. Therefore, result right now will be 3. And just to prove this, if we print result, it will give me 3. Yeah. So of course, if we change this to 5, it'll give me 1 plus 5 equals 6. It will return 6. The 6 will be stored inside result. Then our print result, and it will be 6. Yeah, so that's kind of how it works. You can just change it however you want. It'll just return whatever you want. Yeah, and if you don't return something, the function, as expected, will return nothing, right? So let's say I didn't. What's it? Let's just say I didn't do anything. I just said I did this, like x equals this. Right? I just gave x the value, so 2 plus 5 is 7. So x is going to be equal to 2 plus 5, and x is going to be equal to 7. But I'm not returning anything. Like it's the result is stored in x, but x, I'm not returning x. Like if I returned x, then I would know the result would be 7, because this function is returning 7 to result. But if I'm not returning anything, then I don't get anything. So result is going to be not none. Yeah, I said none because I didn't return anything. Nothing was returned, so result is none right now. It's basically it's nothing. I didn't give it anything. Yeah. So basically, in general, you don't want to return nothing because the whole point of a function is either is to give you something, right? You don't want to return nothing, so the function is basically useless if you do that. Does that make sense to you guys? I'm assuming you guys got it. So we have this final practice problem to end the class. So it's like a combination of what you've learned. So it'll create a function that asks the user to input an age. If the age is greater than 18, output this. If it's not, then output this. And then you have to call the function, of course. So yeah, I'll give you guys around 5 minutes to do that. All right, hopefully you guys have had a chance to kind of try out this problem. It is sort of difficult, but I think if you guys are able to get this, then you basically understand what was going on. But if you don't, then that's fine. We're just going to go over the answers now. So create a function that asks to use the input and age. So let's just call this function because yeah. And let's just make sure to call the function first. So we don't have to we don't really have to put in anything now because I mean the function doesn't really need anything right now. So let's ask the user to input an age. So this function was going to ask for an age. Input. Okay. If age is greater than 18, I'll put you are an adult. It should be greater than or equal to, but okay. Print you are an adult. Right? If function is greater than 18, print that. And if there's anything else, print you're not an adult. So else, remember, print you are not an adult. And yeah, we don't have to return anything in this case because it's only printing. We're only printing stuff. We don't actually need anything really. Like yeah, we don't need anything because it's just gonna print something. So that's just how it's gonna work. We don't need to return anything for this problem. But after this, I'll show you if you really want to use returning, then this could also kind of work. So because I called the function, right? So now the function is gonna run. So let's put 20, and it should say you are an adult. Now, I'm gonna just show the importance of calling the function. So if I don't call the function, I've created a function, but the code doesn't know if I need to use it or not. So nothing's gonna happen. Yeah, that's why you need to call the function. And if you wanted to return something, you could also return this value and return, right? Um, if age is greater or equal to 18, return this value. Else return this value. Now remember, if you want to return something, then you need a variable to receive that value. If you're returning something, you need something to receive it. So I have to receive it with the result. So now I can receive whatever is in here. And now result is either going to contain this or it's going to contain this. So I'll just print it out then. Right? So 20, you are an adult. If I do 5, it's going to return you are not an adult. And that will be stored inside the result, so I can print it. And yeah, that's kind of how functions work. You can put some parameters in here as well. You don't need it for this problem. You can just print it or you can return, but if you return, you have to make sure you receive that value though. That's kind of the gist of it. All right. And that is the end of today's lesson. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. If not, then feel free to leave. Thank you for attending today's class. Next week is going to be a different instructor. And yeah, thank you for joining. Just, yeah.